I'm watching at least one game from every conference in college basketball, and I like what I saw from the A10. Now, of course, nobody's in conference play yet, but Dayton did play UMBC the other day, and there is a lot to love from this Dayton team. They're a very weird team defensively, and I mean that in the best possible way. They run a full court press, which most teams do, but they start blitzing at the three-quarter court mark at different intervals. And a lot of times, at least in that game, once the team did break the press, they fell back into different zones. I mean, I saw a boxing one-on-one possession, I saw a 1-2-2, I saw a 3-2, I saw everything. And my toxic trait when I watch college basketball is that I can always convince myself that someone that I'm watching could make the league, and Keontae Jones did it for me this time. The very easy comp is OG Anunoby. They have similar builds, they have similar wingspans, and he looks like an NBA player. Almost 10 points a game, decent counting stats everywhere else, 3.5 stocks, and shooting hyper efficiently. Now, of course, it's very early in the season, but I was impressed, and I'm definitely looking forward to more mid-major basketball. And it's Big South's time to shine. Now, I live in Georgia, so I turned this game on for Georgia State, so I expected this to be a Sun Belt video, but Presbyterian had other ideas. More specifically, Eric Taylor had different ideas. I do love his play style. Picks you up 94 feet, understands defensive assignments, take charges, does everything on the basketball floor that you need him to on the defensive end. And a perfect comp for him is Jose Alvarado, not just from the playstyle objective, but they both seem kind of annoying in the best possible way. Because every time that you needed a big bucket, Eric was there. Every time you needed a defensive stop, Eric was there. I did want to show some love to Joa Chappelle. He did ball out. He reminds me a lot of Brandon Ingram. He came from a community college, so he had the ball in his hands a lot more there, but you saw it in spurts here. He was very smooth and very fluid and very comfortable with the ball in his hands. And it was also nice to see an Atlanta kid play for the hometown team. Looks like I'm going to have to talk about the Sun Belt another day because Presbyterian and the Big South came to play. The ACC brought their A game, and as a West Virginia fan, I do hate Virginia Tech, but I love the way they play basketball. And I think that St. Joseph's is a good basketball team, but they ran into a buzzsaw. Virginia Tech brings a lot of defensive intensity. Some of that is coaching, but the other part of it is your depth and your players. This team forced 19 turnovers in this game, and a lot of that defensive activity was from Ben Hammond. Came off the bench, scored 11, 6 dimes, 3 steals. He reminds me a lot of Davion Mitchell. He's 5'11", is going to guard you 94 feet and make your life hell. I was also really impressed with Toby Lawal. He is undoubtedly one of the best athletes in the entire country. There were multiple times this game that I was flabbergasted at what I saw him do. And then the entire reason I picked this game was to see if Neo was the real deal. And let me tell you, he is. Finished with 14, 5, 7, and 2 blocks, and he is 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody else on the floor. Has amazing game feel, plays exactly like Luka Doncic, but is a slightly better defender. And honest to God, whoever gets the #1 pick in the NBA draft, I'd think about it. The other day, I caught some Big Ten action. A top 25 matchup with 2 elite coaches, 2 Hall of Fame coaches. How was I supposed to pass this up? Now, full disclosure, I did turn this on because I'm a huge John Calipari fan, but obviously I can't turn away Tom Izzo. He has had this reputation as a coach for a reason. One of the reasons that he keeps finding talent to come to Michigan State, and Cam Ward is one of those talents. Counting stats for the season look fine. Finished with 18 points, and he looks so very comfortable on the floor. Not to use a ton of cliches in the book, but he's got great game feel. Most of his points were finding the negative space on the floor to get open. He cut at the right time. He was in the dunker spot at the right time. He was just around the hoop when he needed to be. And I am sure after this game and the rest of the season he's going to be a one and done at Michigan State. He does kind of remind me of Aaron Gordon and Zion a little bit in different ways. Definitely not as athletic, but definitely has a nose for the ball. Michigan State got a good one. Last night I got a taste of the SoCon. And let me tell you, I was watching some real hoops. Now, some people may ask, why did I pick the Citadel to be my SoCon team? I like the name. Also had no idea where they were from. South Carolina, by the way, so that was a factor as well. But I do think they did a good job at representing the SoCon. I do want to give flowers to North Greenville, though. They did not hit a field goal in the first 10 minutes of this game and still made it competitive multiple times. This is also the kind of sicko game that I wanted to watch. There may have been 300 people here, including the players in the band. That means I had to be the only person watching it on stream. Favorite thing to do when I'm watching a game like this and I don't have any vested interest is to pick a player and watch every movement that he makes, and today it was Marcos Gonzalez. True freshman out of Chicago at a much lesser scale, obviously plays a lot like Lonzo Ball. Just super active, wants to be a part of every play, and knows how to get his guys involved. I don't think that the Citadel would be a tournament team, but if they were, I think this is the guy that you would remember. I also think that next year a couple Power 5 schools might be calling his name. Today I got some action. Or some action in this case as I watched St. Peter's take on UMass Lowell. Honestly, it was a pretty good back and forth game. UMass Lowell had one objective, and it was to get in the paint. 42 of their 66 points came in the paint. The problem for them is that they turned the ball over a lot. St. Peter's had one thing in mind: make them turn the ball over and hit a bunch of threes. St. Peter's forced 24 turnovers, and hit 11 threes in this game. And for St. Peter's, all of them played so fast and so frantically that it was really a win by committee, but two people did stand out. The first being TJ Robinson. First of all, get his picture up there. Disrespectful. True freshman out of New Jersey finished the game with 15 points, 3 assists, 3 steals, and stylistically plays a lot like Tyrese Maxey. Loves a huge left-right crossover, loves a pick and roll, and loves to get downhill. And Brent Bland reminds me of that stereotypical 4-year guard that you need on your team. Think Marcus Sasser, think Jamal Sheed, think Javon Carter. Hell of a game too. Played all 40 minutes, finished with 15 points, 6 steals, and on the season he is averaging 44% from 3 on 9.5 attempts a game. Not sure that St. Peter's is going to be a tournament team, but they were fun for this game. And today I reached the summit, and Oral Roberts had no business being in this game, let alone winning it. According to the KenPom rankings, Kennesaw State is ranked 150th, and Oral Roberts is damn near 300. They were also picked to finish last in the Summit League. I watched their game and they win? Is that a coincidence? I certainly don't think so. I had my eye on one matchup this entire game, and that was the matchup between senior guards, starting off the Kennesaw State and Simeon Cottle. Both of these guards kind of remind me of Jamon Small, especially last year at WVU. They both want the moment. Very comfortable with the ball in their hands, wants to get their guys involved, pretty good positional defenders as well. Cottle did foul out of this game, but finished with 15 points, hit 3 threes, and finished 4 for 7 from the field. Ty Harper had a game too, 20 points, hit 4 threes, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. Not to mention finished great in the clutch. And there's a lot of reasons you can point to that Oral Roberts won this game, but the big factor, they hit 62% of their threes, 13 for 21. What are you supposed to do about that? I'm ready to see what the Southland has to offer. We've got an in-state rivalry as Stephen F. Austin takes on UT Arlington. I have some history with Stephen F. Austin. For those unaware, this guy almost ruined my entire life. Some of you may be too young to remember. In the 2016 March Madness tournament, this guy and Stephen F. Austin knocked off West Virginia University, who was a 3 seed in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and then, ironically, became a very important piece to my favorite EuroLeague team, so I guess time does heal all wounds. Back to the game, Stephen F. Austin was up 10 at one point, but it never really felt like this game was out of reach for either team. A couple people stood out to me. First of all, ESPN, he's a junior. Get his picture up there. Lateef Patrick plays so very much like Kyrie Irving. He's crafty, left-right crossover, left-hand finishes. You want it, he's got it. Middies for days, too. He had 16 points in this game. Didn't do a whole lot else, but I think at least 14 of those points came from the mid-range. And then for UTA, Marcel McCreary, their senior guard, came up huge in the clutch, hit a huge 3 when they needed it, got a huge rebound and a block to make sure that this game was out of reach for good. And if you're looking for a comp, I think the easy answer is Julius Randle in a point guard's body, but honestly, he reminds me a lot of AO from the And One days. If you know, you know, and if you don't, look up the mixtape. Today, we've reached the Northeast Conference, and hoop enjoyers, Chicago State is on the board. First and foremost, shout out to Chicago State's broadcast team and their communications department, because without them, I wouldn't have been able to watch this game. It wasn't on ESPN+, and it wasn't on Flow Sports. Coming into this game, Chicago State was 0-8, and there was really only 2 games on this schedule so far that they should have won. Now, they were playing an NAIA school, but a win is a win, and a big reason they got that win is because of CJ Ray. He finished the game with 12 points and 10 rebounds, and I don't think that he's doing it all year long, but he finished the game with 8 offensive rebounds. Honestly, kind of reminds me a lot of Quincy Acey, at least for this game. I do want to give St. Xavier a little bit of credit, especially Mason Kablikis, because he hit 4 threes in the first half. Didn't do anything in the second half, but was able to keep that team in the game in the first. And when you've been in a losing streak like Chicago State has, you kind of want to beat these NAI teams by 40 or 50, and they didn't do that, but again, a win is a win. And who knows, maybe this is the turning point for them in the season. Today it's time to check out Alabama State in the SWAC. Now, unfortunately for Alabama State, they did not pick up the win here, but it was competitive up until about 3 minutes left in the game. It should also be mentioned that Alabama State is good, they just haven't played in 11 days, so I'm pretty sure that once they get into conference play, they'll be just fine. When I watch games from non-Power 5 conferences, it's usually the seniors that impress me, but it was 2 freshmen that did it for me this time. Starting off with Jaquarius Standback, he is very much the sequential hustle guy on your team. He kind of reminds me of Ekpe Udoh, a little undersized for his position, but he makes up for it with his defensive intensity. Finished with 1 steal and 4 blocks this game. 2 thunderous dunks too, really great around the rim. And then for the victors in UT Martin, Montas Danusius really impressed me. Reminds me a lot of Luka Garza. Now, he's certainly not the rebounder or the shot blocker that Luka Garza was, but he still has the offensive game like Luka had in his last year at Iowa. Can score at all 3 levels, has a great post game, and shoots a 40% clip from 3. And if UT Martin makes the tournament, this is the one I keep my eye on. And who knew that a barn burner was on my horizon? League. And while I will never forgive George Hill's alma mater, for changing their name. I do like their City Edition jerseys. But unfortunately for them, despite a strong first half, Green Bay came out swinging in the second and never really looked back. IU Indy made it competitive a couple times, but Green Bay had this never say die attitude, and that starts with CJ O'Hara. Multiple times in this game, especially in the first half when Green Bay was down, CJ O'Hara was the only one that gave a shit, and you can't teach that. I think a good comp for him would be Keldon Johnson, because for all of Keldon's faults, he wants to win no matter the cost, and he can't teach heart. And for IU Indy, I have to talk about Micah Davis. He was a fantastic watch. Finished with 17 points and 5 rebounds, and I loved watching him play because he reminds me a lot of the N1 mixtape days. Specifically, he reminded me of Hot Sauce. Micah Davis loves a flashy assist. Great game overall. If you're interested in the Horizon League, go ahead and give the Horizon Roundtable a follow anywhere you can. They do a great job at covering the conference. And the Missouri Valley Conference probably gave me the best game I'm going to watch during Project Nomad, because this game between Bradley and Indiana State went to triple overtime. And honestly, I thought it was going to be a rout. Very early on in the game, Bradley went on this run, went up 13 points, and it looked like Indiana State just didn't have it in them. There were a couple players that got them back into this game. Derek Vorst finished with 17 points, 11 rebounds, and you can tell that he wants to play like Jokic or Alperen Şengün. I don't think the coach trusts him yet, but he does have very good game feel. And Cam Wagner's a shorter Michael Porter Jr. If you give this kid a centimeter of space, he is going to shoot. And for Bradley, they were led by two very small guards that honestly remind me a lot of former Celtics. For Jaquan Johnson, he reminds me so much of Isaiah Thomas. He loves to be able to put you on his hip and put you in hell. And if you know me, that is quite a compliment. Then true freshman, Montana Wheeler, ended up putting this game away in the third overtime. He plays a lot like Carson Edwards. Finished with 19 points and 4 assists, and also hasn't seen a shot that he doesn't like. This was certainly the best game that I've seen so far, and I'm not sure that anything is going to top it. This is exactly why the mid-majors matter. The Western Athletic Conference is a little whack, because as it stands right now, there are only 7 schools in their conference, which is by far the least amount in all 31 conferences in college basketball. But I did pick this game to see Utah Tech take on Damian Lillard's alma mater in Weber State, and it was a pretty good game. Utah Tech came out swinging in the first one on a 15-0 run, and it was because of their frenetic defense. They are on a string. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing. Credit to Weber State, though, they could have very easily just rolled over and died, but they kept this game competitive all the way up to the end. And the guy that was leading them into battle was Tijon Sane, and don't let these counting stats on the season fool you. He can go. He finished the night with 28 points and 4 assists, and honestly kind of reminds me a lot of Jameer Nelson. And while he's not shooting well this year from 3, he finished the night 3 for 7 from 3, and last year he shot about 39%, so I think he may just be in a slump. And for Utah Tech, we have to talk about Ethan Potter, who finished the night with 23 points, 8 rebounds, and a block. Kind of reminds me of Drew Timme on those Gonzaga teams. Very much the heart and soul of this team. Loves working in the low post, and all of his effort paid off tonight because he ended up with the game winner. Great game all around, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Utah Tech went on a little bit of a run now. And I got to head home to the Big East. Some of you may know that I am a West Virginia fan, and we used to play in the Big East, and let me tell you, I miss it every single day. What I don't think I would miss is playing as good of teams as Villanova is. I do want to give credit where credit is due. Seton Hall is a very good team. They're going to make some noise in the tournament, probably not a lot, but they are a very well-coached program, and I like what they have going on. The problem is that it was just Villanova's night. They were up as much as 20 at one point, so don't let this final score fool you. I mean, do you know how good of a team you have to have double the amount of turnovers that the opponent does and still walk away with the victory? When I do these kind of videos, I try my best to talk about one guy from each team. After all, college basketball is socialist by nature, but I just couldn't do it for this game, because the story of the game was Caden Lewis, who reminds me a lot of Jeff Teague. Caden finished with 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals, and he had everything in his bag. Left-hand, right-hand layups, floaters, mid-range, three-point games, he had it all. And the biggest thing for me is that he looked so very comfortable with the ball in his hands, and you don't really see that with freshmen nowadays. I still think UConn's going to win the Big East, but if someone else was going to, I think this Villanova squad might. Today, it's time to check out the CUSA, as Liberty University takes on Florida International in honestly a really good game. These two teams are kind of twin flames. They both want to play very fast, some of the fastest teams in the nation as far as pace goes, and they also want to play very aggressive defense. For Liberty in particular, I love the way they play basketball, because more often than not, it turns into wins. They are a top 10 winning program since 2018 in D1 hoops. I'll get to their players in a second, but for Florida International, I have to talk about Eric Dabami. He is very raw, but let me tell you, he's going to be very good very soon. He finished the game with 21 points, 9 rebounds, 5 of those being offensive, and he kind of reminds me of Kaman Malawach. Again, very, very raw, but I think he's got some game to him. And then for Liberty, their two-headed monster of a backcourt, Brett Decker and Caden Matheny, honestly remind me a lot of Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. Not defensively, mind you, but both of them know how to hoop. They finished this game with a combined 52 points, 8 assists, and combined for 11 threes. All the experts say that Liberty's going to make some noise in the tournament, and if you don't believe them, believe me. And it's time for some home cooking as I watch Georgia State take on Marshall in the Sun Belt. Now, this is the second time that Georgia State has been in this series. Unfortunately for them, it's the same result as Marshall picks up a 4-point win. And there were two guys on Marshall's squad that really stood out to me. Wyatt Fricks was the first one, and he reminds me so much of Chris Birdman Anderson. Oh, he's more polished. He doesn't have the mohawk and a bunch of tattoos, but he just does everything with such force. He finished the game with 21 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 confident shattering blocks. And then their guard, Jalen Spear, finished the game with 26 points, hit 6 threes, had 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals. And he reminds me a lot of Eddie House, or Timo Cruz if you prefer. Either way, they've never seen a shot they didn't like. For Georgia State, I highlighted Joey Chappelle last time, and he had a decent game, but Jelani Hamilton really showed out, and he reminds me a lot of Jalen Suggs. He's just a bigger guard, 6'5", likes to mix things up. He finished the game with 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 steals. Sucks that they couldn't get it done this game, but eventually Georgia State will get a win while I watch. Today, it's time to head out west for the West Coast Conference. And I really wasn't familiar with any team in the conference outside of Gonzaga, so I played it safe and picked their game. I expected this to be a blowout, but shout out to San Diego. They kept it competitive all the way through. A lot of that charge was led by Tyler Johnson. I love the way that he plays. He reminds me a lot of Darius Garland. Finished the night with 21 points, 3 assists, and 2 steals. He was very much the leader of this team, and they needed him desperately. And for Gonzaga, there's a lot of players that I could have picked, but I picked Graham Ike because he reminds me a lot of one of my favorite college players, Oscar Tshiebwe. The counting stats aren't going to pop off the page. He finished the night with 11 points and 9 rebounds, but he went 5 for 5 from the field and has amazing footwork. But honestly, I could have picked anybody on this team. They are so deep. Probably the deepest team that Gonzaga has ever had. Don't let this close game fool you. The West Coast Conference is loaded, and I would go ahead and pencil in Gonzaga for at least the Sweet 16. Today we're heading out to the Rocky Mountains to check out some Big Sky action. And there were times that this Idaho State-Sacramento State game was very competitive, but for the most part, it was an ass beating. I think the problem for Sacramento State is that they are coached by Mike Bibby, who wants to run NBA actions, and you can see that as they play. The problem is that they have one potential pro and nobody else. Idaho State was really able to blow this game open because they shoot the lights out. They had 3 guys hit 4 threes. Connor Hollenbach is one of those guys. He is an elite catch and shoot player. He honestly reminds me a lot of Luke Kennard, just a little taller. Lachlan Brewer had a great game too. He used to play for Sacramento State and had a career-high 18 points against him. He reminds me of Dalton Connect, not for his 3-level scoring, but because he can get hot instantly. And then you've probably heard his name before. The only reason that Sacramento State was even in this game remotely was Mikey Williams. He finished the game with a career-high 34 points, and he is the only pro on the team. Super athletic, looks like an NBA player, kind of reminds me of Jalen Green. This Sacramento State team is not very good, but maybe in a couple years they can turn that around. And it's time to tell you about the awful experience I had trying to watch a Mountain West game. So I put this game on my calendar weeks ago. For what it's worth, ended up being a really good game. I didn't find out until tip-off that it wasn't on ESPN Plus or Flow Sports, or I couldn't find it, a different way. So then I go to the Mountain West website, and I find out that they archived their games. No biggie. I'll just wait a day to watch it. But then I saw that this game happened, a triple overtime thriller. I thought, okay, I'll just watch that game instead. That seems like a way better game. And you know what? It never archived. And even when I was trying to watch this game on the Mountain West website, it buffered every 45 seconds. Honest to God, if you are a Mountain West fan, I feel bad for you. Now, back to the game. This Colorado State team is very well coached. I wouldn't be surprised if they make the tournament and they have an upset. The Grand Canyon University team did put up a fight because they were down as much as 25 at one point. And I say this university, but it was really just Micaiah Williams. He was the only one that gave a shit multiple times in the second half. He finished the game with 22 points off the bench and kind of reminds me of Aaron Kraft and those Ohio State teams back in the day. Very much the heart and soul of this team. As for the victors, Kerry Booth kind of reminds me of Sean Marion. He has a very weird-looking jump shot, but he shoots 44% from 3, so who am I to judge it? He finished the game with 19 points, 12 rebounds, and is a great positional defender. My negative comments in this video are not aimed at the teams in the Mountain West. You gotta fix this website, though. It is the worst. It's time to head to the East Coast as I check out the MEAC. And as you can probably tell from this scoreboard, this was not a very competitive game. It had its moments, for sure, but for the most part, This was an ass beating. And for Howard, while there was probably better performing players like Osi Okoji and Travell Bryson, I think the one that I enjoyed the most watching was Cedric Taylor. He finished the game with 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 blocks, and honestly kind of reminds me of Lamar Odom. The way that they moved was really similar to the half spins, the shimmies, the left-right crossovers. They are almost identical. At the end of the day, Cedric Taylor just has a real throwback vibe to him. And describing an era that I grew up on in basketball, a throwback era, kind of makes me want to die, but what are you going to do? I am a little upset that this game was non-competitive. Most of the games that I've watched in this series have been, so maybe I'll come back to the MEAC because this was not a very good first impression. I'm sticking with the East Coast, but this time I'm checking out the ASUN. And this game between Queens, Charlotte, and Florida Gulf Coast University could have been very, very lopsided very early on, but shout out to Florida Gulf Coast University. They made it competitive. One of the main reasons that this game was competitive at the end was because of Ramir Barno. He finished the game with 15 points, 3 rebounds, and a steal. He honestly kind of reminds me of Rob Dillingham a little bit. Very fast, very twitchy, also sometimes a little out of control, but this is his first year being a full-time starter, so I'm sure that's just going to come with time. And for Queen's side, there were 4 players who had as many points or more than Avante Parker, but he's the one that impressed me the most. He finished the game with 11 points, 7 rebounds, a block, and went 4 for 4 from the field. Just the perfect complement to everything else going on for that team. And sometimes it's better to be a star in your role than to be a star player. He honestly kind of reminds me of Terrence Jones. Just a 6'9", do-it-all forward, and honestly, if Queens didn't have this guy, this game may have been a little different. I'm heading to New England as I'm checking out the American East. Now, this game versus New Hampshire and Maine, I wouldn't consider a barn burner, but I have definitely seen worse basketball games. The reality of the situation is that they aren't very good teams. They very much played like 2 teams with a combined record of 7-28 coming into this game. And you can see that from some of the box score stats. New Hampshire shot 28% from 3, and if you thought that was bad, Maine shot 7%. But let's focus on some of the positives. TJ Beal reminds me a lot of Luol Deng. He finished the game with 8 points and 3 blocks, and this was a very down game for him. He's averaged 20 points a game in American East play, but let me tell you, he is one hell of a positional defender. And then for New Hampshire and Tyler Bike, this is a TJ McConnell clone. He finished the game with 10 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals, and listen to me when I tell you this. He probably had the most crucial, the most timely, the most clutch 10, 4, 4, and 2 stat line in basketball history. He hit the big shots, he got offensive rebounds when the team needed it, and he stole the ball and played defense exactly when the team needed it. It wasn't a great counting stats game, but I don't think that New Hampshire wins this game without Tyler Bike. And again, the teams themselves aren't very good, but at least those 2 players made up for it. And we're heading to the Midwest as we check out the Ohio Valley Conference. And I don't think that Arkansas is technically in the Midwest, but I digress. Now, this game was pretty competitive throughout, but Tennessee State is one of the best teams in the conference, and they played like it. First, I want to talk about Little Rock and Jonathan Lawson. He is so confident and so fun to watch. He kind of reminds me of Amani Bates. Their shot profiles are different, but neither of them have seen a shot that they don't like. There are 20-point game-a-night scorers in the NBA that have less confidence than Jonathan Lawson. Love to watch him play. And for Tennessee State, I love watching Aaron Nkrumah play. He is the reason that this team is going places. And just general blanket statement, plays a lot like Lou Dort. Really physical, really active on defense, averages 3 steals a game, and tonight he had 5. But he stuffed the stat sheet too, with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. And if he can get hot, I think Tennessee State can win the conference. And I'm heading to Ohio where they run college basketball as I'm checking out the MAAC. And I'm now conflicted whether or not to break out into song with return of the MAAC or wagon wheel, as we have a rivalry game with Akron and Kent State. And quite literally, from the tip of this game, it was a very highly contested battle. The score doesn't say so, but believe me, this was a dogfight. But I'll be fully transparent here. The reason that Kent State wasn't more competitive in this game was their 3-point shooting, because they finished this game 1 for 23 from 3. That's 4%. That's enough of the negative. Let's talk some positive with Delrico Gillespie. He reminds me a lot of James Wiseman. He finished the game with 17 points, 6 rebounds, a block. He's got such soft hands around the rim and a great low post defender. And for the Zips, Bowen Hardman reminds me so much of Dante DiVincenzo. Is incredible off the ball and can light it up from 3. And this Akron team is for real. Go ahead and pencil them in for at least one upset in the tournament. I'm heading down to South Florida as I'm checking out some American Conference hoops. And Florida Atlantic University is one of the best teams in the conference. East Carolina is not. But they were able to squeak this one out on the road because of one guy who is an absolute demon, but we'll get to him in a second. For FAU, I truly love the way that they play basketball. They were in the Final Four a couple years ago, so I've kind of had my eye on them. their defense is so good. They're not afraid to switch up coverages and throw different looks at you. They disrupt so many things on the other team's offense. And for their offense, Devin Vanderpool is one of those guys. He kind of reminds me of Austin Rivers, not necessarily the NBA version of Austin Rivers, the Winter Park Ball is Life mixtape version of Austin Rivers. Devin Vanderpool has some shit to him. And you may not have known, but ECU has a guy that's top 10 in the country for scoring in Jordan Riley. And honestly, FAU played him pretty well. They made him take tough shots. And he still ended the game with 35. And he also added 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block too. He reminds me so much of Cade Cunningham. You're not going to speed him up. He's going to play at his own tempo, and he's an absolute dog. Now, I think it might be a little too late for ECU to go on a run to win this conference, but this game right here, it was a lot of fun. I'm heading back to the East Coast as I'm checking out the CAA. The commentators called this game between UNC Wilmington and Charleston the Super Bowl of the CAA, and I'm not sure I lived up to that hype, but for the most part, it was pretty good. There are a lot of reasons to like both of these teams, but for me, Jalen Counter is worth the price of admission. He's just a very strong, very physical, shifty guard. He honestly kind of reminds me of somebody from And One, and that man is the main event, and that's a pretty high compliment coming from me. Finished the game with 20 points and 6 rebounds, and he was really the reason that Charleston was in this game at all. And then for Wilmington, they have an Isaiah Hartenstein clone on their roster right now. In physical appearance, yes, but also stat lines. He finished the game with 15 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. He's just a do-it-all big with very much underrated playmaking skills. From what I can tell, the CAA is very talented. I'm not sure if they're going to be a 2-bid league, but if they are, I would expect these two to be there. It's time to check out the best conference in all of college basketball. My favorite team, West Virginia University, plays in the Big 12, so technically I've seen like 40 Big 12 games, but this is the one that we're going to count. And the game certainly did not disappoint. I feel like everybody within the basketball sphere was watching this game at the same time, and everybody got the same amount of enjoyment out of it. Over the last couple of years, Houston has struggled against top 10 ranked teams on the road, and Iowa State is undefeated, and there's a big reason why. Their crowd is insane. They are a huge reason why they won this game. And Milan Momcilovic is not a huge reason why this team won today. However, he is going to be a very solid pro. Doesn't do a ton else on the floor, but he knows how to put the ball in the hoop. He reminds me, at least for his body comp and his play style, kind of reminds me of Franz Wagner, but he's a much better shooter. And Emmanuel Sharp has had one hell of a run over the last 3 games. He was a big reason why the Houston was in this game at all. And again, if we're just talking about putting the ball in the hoop, he reminds me a lot of Devontae Graham, especially those years at Kansas. Both of them are natural-born killers. The Big 12 is arguably the 3rd best basketball league in the entire world. In this game right here, that's proof. I'm heading to New England as I'm checking out some Patriot League action. 43 miles separate Boston University from Holy Cross. It never really felt like a rivalry, though. There were parts of this game that felt really competitive, specifically at the end of the first half. Holy Cross went on an 11-0 run and shot 44% from 3 to keep it close. But ultimately, with the help of Ben Defty, the Boston team was just too much. Ben is a legit 7-footer, a man amongst boys. He finished the game with 20 points and 4 blocks, and shot 90% from the field, by the way. And I don't normally do this with the comparisons, but he reminds me specifically of another former college player in Ryan Kalkbrenner. Just a ton of size and a ton of skill. Super soft hands, too. At one point, he broke out a 13-foot hook shot and laced it. Holy Cross tried to keep it close, and Tyler Boston was the heart and soul of this team tonight. He finished the game with 10 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. He kind of reminds me of Jalen Brunson, just a smaller guard that refuses to lose. Neither of these teams are going to win the Patriot League this year, but who doesn't love a New England showdown? Time to officially see what the SEC has to offer. Now, full disclosure, I have seen some SEC games this year, but I wanted to circle this one on my calendar because I figured it was going to be good. But as you can see, the scoreboard doesn't say so. Shout out to Darius Acuff and Billy Richmond, who did perform pretty well for Arkansas, but other than that, this was an ass beating by Florida. This is the point where I would usually highlight one player from each team, but honestly, it was a team effort from Florida. Florida had 7 players scoring double figures, and that just goes to show how well-oiled of a machine they are. And what's insane is that they're not even the most well-oiled machine in the entire country. Honestly, they're probably like 4th or 5th. I think if this was any other year, Florida would have a great opportunity to repeat as champions, but this year, it's kind of murky. But this team is so cohesive and so in tune and so well-oiled that if they did make it back to the national championship, I wouldn't be surprised at all. The SEC's got some pretty good hoops, and Florida's the cream of the crop. It's time to check out some schools that I had no shot getting into. You see, I was really hoping that this game between Yale and Princeton was going to be pretty competitive, but as you can see, Yale's pretty good. As a matter of fact, with today's win, they now have 9 Ivy League titles, including 5 in a row. And a huge reason for that level of sustained success is going to come from Nick Townsend. He's been at Yale for all 4 years, and today he finished the game with 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. And I don't have any DNA tests to confirm this, but I am fairly certain that somehow this is Joe Ingles' son. I mean, it's just way too much of a coincidence if he isn't related to him somehow, because they played the game identically. Something that I feel is very underrated about Nick's game is that he is a 2-time, back-to-back year, 48% three-point shooter. Now, it's not on many attempts, but a clip is a clip. I don't know if they'll make any noise in the NCAA tournament, but 5 league titles in a row, it's pretty dominant. And this is the last stop on the journey as I'm checking out the Big West. And honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better way to end this series. UC San Diego versus UC Santa Barbara. As you can see from the record, 2 pretty even teams, and as you can see from the score, a pretty even game all the way through. So much back and forth that this game came all the way down to the buzzer on a game winner. So how did we get there? Let's talk about the team that almost won. Miro Little is a dog. This game specifically kind of reminds me of Keontae George. He's not a natural facilitator, but you know that it's something that this team has asked him to do this year, and he's stepping up into that role. He finished this game with 10 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. He does have a little bit of a turnover problem, had 5 of those. And then for UC San Diego, Tom Beatty is the most unsuspecting player on this list, but he's also a demon. Finished the game with 14 points, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and 4 assists, including the game-winning assist. I couldn't have asked for a better way to end this series, and I'll have a full recap of the journey tomorrow. I watched one game from each conference in college basketball, and here it is by the numbers and with some superlatives. The highest scoring team throughout this journey was this Florida team who put absolute belt to ass on Arkansas and proved why they're probably a national title favorite. The least amount of points scored by a team in this series was Maine with 48. And if you thought that was bad, they shot 9% from 3 this game. The highest scoring game in this series from the Missouri Valley Conference when Bradley and Indiana State went to 3 overtimes. The game that I personally enjoyed watching the most was in Conference USA, where Liberty took Florida International to overtime. I also enjoyed watching Liberty the most. They have one of the best ran offenses in the entire country, and they ended up winning the Conference USA championship after being featured on Project Nomad. Coincidence? I don't think so. My favorite player to watch in this series was Jordan Riley out of the American Conference, who plays for ECU, an absolute walking bucket. The average score on these games was 79-68, and the home team only won 58% of the games. I had a lot of fun in this series, and I am really excited to show you what I've got in store for next year. I watched one game from each conference in college basketball. And here's what I learned. Some things were less of a learning and more of a reinforcing. What it was reinforced for me is that if you are talented, you can play anywhere and you will get eyes on you. Jordan Riley's a perfect example of that out of ECU. Is second in the nation at the time of recording this video for scoring with 24 points a game, an absolute walking bucket. What was also reinforced is that it doesn't matter what conference you're in, you can hang with the best of them. I'm recording this before March Madness, but when Miami of Ohio, Utah State, and St. Louis end up getting an upset in the tournament, don't be shocked. What was shown to me throughout this entire thing is the scope of what I already knew. The mid-majors are the lifeblood of college basketball, and if it wasn't for them, the March Madness tournament wouldn't be fun at all. There's this huge debate right this second that Auburn, who is barely over 500, should be in this tournament over teams like Miami of Ohio, who are undefeated. After watching all these games, I'm fairly confident that college basketball would survive without Auburn's, but they wouldn't survive without the mid-majors.
Yesterday, barely scraping by, trying to stop puffing. I'm trying to be one of the greats.